Did you know that there are certain things out there which can protect your email domain from being spoofed? There are certain email authentication protocols out there which you may have heard terms like DMARC, DKIM, SPF, even more niche ones like MTA, STS. You may have heard those terms, but do you really know what they mean and what they do? Today I'm really excited to kind of give some insight into what those mean, how they can protect your email domain, and really just give you a bit of extra security for your brand reputation. Nobody wants somebody impersonating their domain or impersonating their employees, and implementing these and working with us on this can really help negate and mitigate some of that risk. So let's go through them. Let's start off with SPF, Sender Policy Framework. This essentially allows you to say, this business can send emails on my behalf. Common use cases for this will be if you work with a marketing agency or with a mass mailing service, where you want them to be able to send the emails, but it's coming from your email domain. So it may be hello@company.com, but actually it's coming from somewhere else because you're using another tool to send those emails. Sender Policy Framework is incredibly important because that defines who can and cannot send emails on behalf of your email domain. DKIM, or Domain Keys Identified Mail, effectively adds a little signature to your emails, which is hidden away from the typical users in the headers, which verifies that this email did indeed come from you and that it has not been tampered with. It's like an integrity check to make sure that no one's played with the email from the point you sent it to the point when it was received by the person at the other end. The next key one, which you may have heard of, is DMARC. And this stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting and Conformance. This is the one that you may have commonly seen banded around, and it does need configuring. A lot of people think that because you have a DMARC record, you're okay. That's not the case. Effectively, what DMARC does is it tells the receiving server what to do if something fails those previous SPF and DKIM checks. So let's just say that somebody's tampered with the email or somebody's not approved to send an email on your behalf. The receiving server will look up your domain record and go, what do I do with this email? It's failed the checks. If you set it to none, which a lot of people do, it will just send the email and deliver it to the person's inbox. If you set it to quarantine, it'll deliver it to their spam mailbox, but it'll still be in their actual email inbox. Or ideally you want it in reject, which means that it'll never be passed to the end user or the person receiving the email. Another part of DMARC is what's called aggregate reports. And these are reports sent by the receiving email service, so the servers who are receiving the emails that are being sent by you or people pretending to be you, about what the status of the records are. So if an email fails DMARC, it will typically send a report somewhere to say, it's failed, here's the reason why, and here's some metadata or loose information about why it's failed and who the receiving server was, who the sending domain was, etc. These are invaluable for understanding if somebody's trying to spoof your domain, and most people don't have these reports going anywhere or they can't interpret them. The final two are lesser talked about, but equally important. MTA-STS, or Message Transfer Agent Strict Transport Security, effectively enforces the ability to be able to only receive encrypted email. It's 2024, every email server should be using a layer of encryption to send emails to and from each other. If you don't have that in place, that's a problem. And what this allows you to do is say, I don't want to receive any emails from servers which aren't sending encrypted emails. This is very different from something like SMIME or Office Message Encryption, where it encrypts the actual email itself. This is around the transportation of the email. And the next one and final one is brand indicators for message identification. You may have seen this actually more maybe in your personal life, where you've received an email from somebody, maybe you've bought something online and you get an email to say that your order has been successful. What you may see sometimes is you get the brand logo in your inbox. Say you're using Gmail or Apple Mail or whatever your mail app of choice is, you may see the little logo from the actual brand in the inbox rather than just like the acronym or the letters or the initials of the brand. What they're using there is BIMI. And what this can allow you to do is just build a bit of brand trust by when you send your emails to other organizations or other users that it's got your company logo in there. So all that sounds great, but what does it actually give you? Why do you need to look at these things? Why do you need to configure these things? And why should you be working with somebody to help you get these things managed and under control? Well, hopefully from those descriptions, you can kind of understand the importance of having these protocols in place. So firstly is you don't want people spoofing your domain. You don't want somebody pretending to be you, sending malicious or suspicious emails like phishing off to other companies where they're going to think that it's you sending it, not somebody else. You can stop that by implementing these protocols. You can also improve your outward-facing security posture. A lot of these checks can be done free of charge. There's plenty of lookup tools where you can go and check these records for people. And having something that's a high score to say that you've configured these things, you've got these things in place, it just builds a bit of trust from whoever's going to be looking at you or working with you. You do take this issue seriously. And finally, it's just something you should be doing. From a security perspective, it's something everybody should be doing. And unfortunately, it's not that easy or straightforward to set up unless you know specifically what you're looking for and where to go. And what can happen if you don't implement these things, you don't manage these things, you don't configure these things? Well, firstly, people could spoof you. Quite honestly, it's not what you want, but it will happen. We've seen multiple cases from working in incident response cases that we've had these spoof attacks used quite often because people didn't configure their DMARC records properly and they weren't putting in place measures to protect everybody else from getting emails that look like they're coming from another company. It also can help from a deliverability perspective. So it's not all about security. It's about, are your emails being delivered? Are they going to the person's inbox? Things like SPF, for example, if you don't configure SPF and you want to do a marketing campaign, for example, if you don't configure that correctly, your emails will go nowhere because you haven't authorized the marketing tool or company to send on your behalf. So your marketing campaign could fall flat purely on a technical configuration issue. This is why we've set this service up. It's just too important to not have something where we can support our current and new customers with protecting their email domain. We've also thrown in reputation monitoring for their domain. So let's just say that if your website domain or your email domain ends up on a blacklist, which means that it might not be accessible, we'll know about those changes and we'll let you know so we can act together and get them removed from those blacklists. This is offered as a fully managed service or a self-managed service. So if you have some people internally which can manage and monitor this, then we can get the ball rolling, we can get you on board, we can get everything set up and configured and make sure you're at 100% score. Or if you want us to take all the burden and manage it for you, we can offer that. Either way, get in touch with us because this is too important not to think about.